really saw anymore. Not unloved, no, not that. Just invisible in plain sight. You know the feeling? When you're in a room full of people you love, but you feel like a background object. Like if you disappeared, the dishes would still get washed, the laundry folded, the lights turned off, but no one would notice the echo you left behind? That was me. Most days, I didn't think too hard about it. You push through. You smile. You make sure everyone else is okay. But that day, something cracked. Not loudly. Not all at once. It started with a knock at the door. A familiar voice calling out, "Hey, is Jordan home?" It was Malik, my stepson's best friend. He was like family. Always around. Always polite. He had this energy, easy, playful, but sharp. The kind of boy who noticed things, even when you wished he wouldn't. Jordan wasn't home. I told him that. He smiled and said, "No worries. I can wait." That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. He walked in like he belonged there. Like the walls already knew his shadow. I offered him a drink, thinking he'd leave after a few minutes. He didn't. We sat in the kitchen, the sun coming through the blinds in stripes. Everything looked ordinary. Safe. But then he looked at me. Not just looked, saw me. And I don't mean in that romantic, cheesy kind of way. I mean, he noticed. The tiredness I didn't talk about. The hunger I tried to hide behind polite smiles. The way my hands trembled just slightly when I poured his tea. And then, without warning, he said, "You always look like you're holding something in. Like your mouth smiles, but your eyes, they don't." I didn't know what to say. So I laughed it off. Changed the subject. Asked about school. But he didn't move on. He leaned forward. Just slightly. Just enough to shift the air between us. And he said something that still makes my stomach twist when I remember it. "Has anyone ever told you, you deserve to be seen?" That was the moment. It wasn't loud. There was no music playing. No thunderclap. No candlelit temptation. Just a question. From someone who wasn't mine to answer to. A moment so quiet, it thundered in my chest. And the worst part? I didn't answer. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just sat there, frozen, caught between who I was and who I was becoming in that moment. And sometimes, silence is louder than permission. Sometimes, not saying stop sounds an awful lot like go. So let me ask you, what would you do if someone asked for something with their eyes and your silence became the answer they were hoping for? Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, because here, we don't just tell stories. We unravel the human heart, one impossible decision at a time. I'm 42. Married. The kind of marriage that still looks neat from the outside, like a perfectly made bed that no one's slept in for years. My husband's a good man. He provides. He shows up. But somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing me. Stopped asking how I was. Stopped listening when I answered. He works late most nights. Comes home tired. Eats in silence. Sleeps like there's nothing missing. And maybe there isn't. For him. But for me. The silence got loud. The kind of quiet that doesn't calm you. It presses on your chest. It reminds you, every hour, that you're no longer the thing someone looks forward to. Jordan, my stepson, is 17. Sweet kid. Talented. Keeps to himself. He draws. Sketches. Loses himself in notebooks more than people. We get along, but we're not close. He still calls me by my first name. Then there's Malik. 18. Confident. That kind of charm that isn't loud, it's quiet, but certain. He knows when to speak, and when to just let the silence do the work. He's been Jordan's best friend for years. But lately, he started showing up more. At first, it made sense. They were working on a school project. Then exams. But after a while, I noticed he'd stop by even when Jordan wasn't home yet. Sometimes he'd say, "I'll just wait," and sit at the kitchen counter like he belonged there. Other times, he'd help me carry groceries in from the car, fix the back door that wouldn't close right. Change a bulb without being asked. Little things. Small gestures. Things my husband used to do before he got too busy. Before the silence between us grew thick enough to cut through. I told myself it was nothing. Just a polite boy. But something in me shifted. I started checking the clock before he arrived. I'd brush my hair, change into a softer sweater, spray perfume I hadn't touched in months. Not for him, I told myself. Just for the mood, for the energy. But the truth? I missed being noticed. And Malik. He noticed. He saw things I thought I'd buried beneath routine. And I didn't push him away. I didn't see it then. I just thought, maybe I liked the company. It was raining. That soft kind of rain that blurs the windows and makes everything feel slower, heavier. Jordan had gone to his friends for the night, some group project they'd been planning. I thought I had the house to myself. But then, a knock. I opened the door, surprised to see Malik standing there. His hoodie was soaked, a paper bag in hand. He held it up and said, "Jordan left this in my car." I nodded, stepped aside. He walked in like he always did, comfortable, familiar. I should have thanked him, taken the bag, and closed the door. But instead, I asked, "You want tea? You look cold." He smiled. "Only if you're joining me." So we sat in the kitchen. 2 mugs between us. Rain tapping against the windowpane. At first, it was simple. Harmless. We talked about school, his upcoming exams, the usual. But then, his tone shifted. Softer. Slower. He looked at me and said, "You always look like you're carrying something heavy." I blinked. Caught off guard, I laughed. Too quickly. "I'm just tired," I said, looking down at my cup. But he didn't look away. Then, slowly, he reached across the table. His fingers brushed against my cheek, barely there. He tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear. A small gesture. But it lit up every part of me I thought had gone cold. I froze. The room suddenly felt too warm, too quiet, too dangerous. I opened my mouth to say something, but I couldn't find the words. He didn't apologize. He didn't pull back like he'd crossed a line. He just smiled and said, "I just wanted to see if you'd let me." My breath caught. I changed the subject. Quickly. Desperately. I asked him how his mother was doing. If he'd eaten. If he was staying dry out there. He answered politely. But something had already shifted. We both felt it. And neither of us mentioned it again. But from that moment on, every silence had a pulse. Every glance carried weight. And that's when it started, the weight of things unspoken. Louder than anything either of us said out loud. After that day, nothing was the same. Not in the way we spoke. Not in the way we moved around each other. And especially, not in the way I thought about him. I kept replaying it in my mind. The way he reached across the table, the way his fingers grazed my skin like he already knew what it would do to me. The way he didn't flinch. I told myself it was nothing. A moment. A misunderstanding. Just a boy being too familiar. But then I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way he looked at me when I entered a room. The pauses before he answered me. The way his compliments slipped into sentences like they belonged there. I caught myself responding. Not with words, but with gestures. Soft smiles. A lowered gaze. And then, without thinking, I started changing things. The way I dressed. At first, it was subtle. A touch of lip balm. An extra button undone. Not for him, I told myself. Just for me. But I knew better. I started checking the time more often in the afternoons. Listening for footsteps outside. Waiting to hear the knock, the voice, the smile. I'd pretend to be surprised when he arrived. "Oh, you again?" But the tea was already steeping. I started cleaning the living room before he came, fixing cushions, lighting a candle, creating warmth as if I expected someone to see it. One night, I caught myself humming, just walking around the house, folding laundry, and humming. I hadn't done that in years. I stopped mid-tune, sat down, and stared at the wall like it would answer me. What was happening to me? Was I that starved for attention? That desperate to feel noticed? I tried to reason with myself. He's just a kid. He's Jordan's friend. You're just being polite. But my body told a different story. The way my hands lingered near his when I passed him something. The way I leaned in when I didn't need to. The way I breathed a little lighter when he was around, and a little heavier when he wasn't. I started waiting for moments that weren't mine to wait for. I started craving something I couldn't name. Something I knew was wrong, but also felt too familiar to be foreign. And the worst part? The worst part wasn't what he saw in me. It was what I started seeing in myself. A woman I thought I buried years ago. A version of me that remembered how it felt to be wanted. And suddenly, that version didn't want to be buried anymore. It didn't happen all at once. No big shift. No dramatic change. Just moments, stretched a little longer than they should have been. Silences that started meaning more than words. Malik began staying later. Sometimes Jordan would head to bed early, headphones in, door shut tight. And Malik, he'd linger. We'd end up in the kitchen. Just the two of us. Me pretending to tidy things I'd already cleaned. Him leaning on the counter like he belonged there. He started asking questions. Not small talk. Not surface stuff. Real questions. The kind that come from watching someone closely. One night, out of nowhere, he asked, "Do you love him? Or are you just used to him?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not truthfully. I just smiled. Said, "Marriage is complicated." But inside, I knew he'd hit something raw. Another night, I passed him a glass of water. Our hands brushed. He didn't move. And neither did I. It wasn't long. Barely a second. But it stayed with me, long after he left. I started catching him watching me. Not in a bold way. He wasn't reckless. Just steady, intentional. Like he was memorizing me. And I started doing it back. I noticed the way his voice dropped when we were alone. The way he stood a little closer. The way he listened when I spoke, really listened. And the worst part? I let him. I stopped pretending I didn't enjoy it, even when I saw Jordan retreating more, getting quieter, sitting further from us on the couch, taking his meals to his room. I wondered if he knew, if he saw it before I did. But I didn't stop. I didn't create distance. I just kept feeding the silence. One evening, Malik came in from the rain again, drenched, laughing, shaking water from his sleeves. I handed him a towel. He took it, then looked at me and said, "Have you ever wanted something you knew you couldn't have?" I didn't think, didn't plan, didn't guard myself. I just said. Every day, we stood there, not moving, not touching, but everything in the room was alive. Like even the air knew we'd crossed something invisible. It was never said. But we were already speaking a language only the two of us understood. And once you learn to speak in silence, it's almost impossible to unhear it. It was late. The kind of quiet that only happens when the whole house is sleeping. When the walls feel softer, the air feels heavier, and nothing moves unless you let it. Jordan had gone to bed hours ago. My husband was working late again, or maybe just avoiding coming home. I stopped asking which. I was heading to my room. Lights dimmed, teacup empty, silence pressing in like a second skin. And then, there he was. Malik. Standing in the hallway, back against the wall like he'd been waiting. Eyes soft, unreadable. Hands in his pockets. I froze for a second, then started to walk past him. But he didn't move. He stepped forward, just enough to block the path. Not touching. Just standing there, so close, I could feel the warmth of his breath in the air between us. He looked at me and said, "You always wait for me to make the first move." My lips parted, but I didn't speak. I couldn't. He leaned in just a little, voice low, almost a whisper. "So, can I ask for it? Just once." He didn't say what it was. He didn't have to. And I didn't ask. Because deep down, I already knew. I stood there. Still. Silent. Heart pounding so loud, I was sure he could hear it. and I didn't step back. My silence said everything, and he heard it clearly. What happened next didn't last long. It wasn't dramatic. No fireworks. No music. Just breath. Touch. Heat. A moment that felt like it didn't belong to time. It was barely a whisper. But it was enough. Enough to crack the foundation I'd built my life on. Enough to shift something inside me that would never shift back. When it was over, I pulled away. Quietly. Carefully. He didn't chase. Didn't reach for me. He just looked at me with this softness, this certainty, and said, "Now you know what it feels like to be wanted." I turned, walked to my room, closed the door behind me, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's wife, or someone's mother figure, or someone's second thought. But I also didn't feel like myself. I shut the door behind me and realized I didn't even know who I was anymore. The morning after, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I tried, but my own reflection felt like a stranger I didn't trust. I kept my distance. From him. From everyone. Malik didn't come around after that night. No text. No visits. Just absence. And I didn't reach out either. I thought avoiding him would make it all disappear. Like if I acted normal enough, long enough, it would all fade into something forgettable. But silence doesn't erase anything. It just wraps around guilt and presses it deeper. Jordan noticed first. He asked casually one afternoon, "Have you heard from Malik?" I froze. Then lied. He said he's busy. Exams, maybe. Jordan nodded, but I saw it. That flicker of confusion, or maybe doubt. And then there was my husband. Suddenly more present. Asking if I was okay. Touching my shoulder in the kitchen like he used to. I should have welcomed it. I should have leaned into the chance to fix what was still mine. But instead, I flinched. Not because of him, but because every touch reminded me of the one I shouldn't have let happen. He started suggesting we go out more. Dinner. A weekend drive. I smiled. Said I was tired. Said I had too much to do. Said anything but the truth. Because how do you sit across from someone who trusts you, knowing what you did with the silence between his sentences? Then, one evening, my phone buzzed. Malik. Just a single message. We never spoke about it, but I still think about it. I stared at the screen for a long time. My fingers hovered. Backspace. Backspace. And then, I deleted it. But it didn't leave me. It stayed. In the back of my mind. In the pit of my stomach. In every pause between words I didn't know how to say anymore. I told myself it was over. That it had been a mistake. A moment. But moments don't vanish. Not the ones that break something open inside you. I thought I had buried it. But some things don't stay buried. Especially when they're alive inside you. I've been quiet. Too quiet. And not the kind that brings peace. The kind that loops the same question over and over again until it carves itself into your bones. I've questioned everything. Not just that night. But everything leading up to it. Every look I ignored. Every thought I allowed. Every silence I let stretch too long. I keep asking myself, was it a slip? A moment of weakness? Or had I been walking toward it all along? Not in big strides, but in little, silent choices. Day by day. Smile by smile. Lonely hour after lonely hour. I started journaling again. Not because I had answers, but because the words had nowhere else to go. Some nights I write pages I can't even bring myself to read. Other nights, I just cry. Quiet, hidden crying. The kind you do with your hand over your mouth so no one hears. I tell myself it was just a moment. But that's a lie. Because it wasn't just what happened. It was how it felt. It's the way he looked at me. Not like I was his friend's stepmother. Not like I was older. Off limits. Wrong. But like I was someone. Like I wasn't fading. Not with lust. But with recognition. Like he saw the part of me I tried to hide and didn't flinch. And that's what scares me the most. Because it wasn't just about him. It was about me. about how badly I wanted to feel known, to feel chosen, to feel like I still had a pulse. I've thought about telling someone, my husband, Jordan, even a friend. But who do you confess to when the person you betrayed the most is yourself? And what good would it do? To hurt them for something I already can't undo? To open a wound when I'm the one who held the knife? I replay that silence. The one I gave him. The one that let it all happen. And I wonder, what did it cost me? A part of my marriage? My self-respect? The fragile bond one had with Jordan? Maybe all of it. But the question that haunts me the most, the one I whisper in the dark when no one's listening, was I wrong for needing to be seen? Or was I just human, aching to matter again? Have you ever made a choice, not because you wanted to, but because you didn't know how to say no? Because the moment caught you off guard, and your silence said more than your words ever could? I think about that night often. Not because I want to, but because it became a mirror I can't turn away from. Was I wrong for letting that moment happen? Or was I just lost in the ache of being forgotten? It's hard to admit how powerful loneliness can be, how it chips away at you quietly. Until you mistake attention for love, and recognition for something more. I wonder sometimes if I'd spoken up sooner. If I'd reached for my husband's hand in the dark instead of holding silence like it was safer. Would any of this have happened? Or was it always going to unfold this way? A slow unraveling of something that never had the strength to hold together? Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're there now. Caught between right and wrong, between who you are and who you fear you're becoming. Tell me in the comments, was this betrayal? Or just a cry for connection in the wrong place at the wrong time? If stories like this stir your soul, like this video and subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We unravel the human heart. Some moments don't scream. They whisper. And change you quietly, from the inside out. They slip in through a glance, a touch, a silence, and by the time you realize what they've taken, it's already too late to undo them. I've learned that attention isn't love. It feels like it, but it isn't. And longing isn't permission. It's just a signal. One that begs to be felt, not acted on. We all want to be wanted. It's human. But wanting doesn't always mean we should be touched. If you're lonely, say it. If you're aching, feel it. If something's missing, don't fill it with something that costs you more than it gives. Because silence, once broken, can never be unheard. And some doors once opened, never truly close again.